Hello and thank you for choosing to watch this video interview with Mark Shinn, in which we discuss winging in waves, his journey towards the equipment he rides now, and his favourite spots in Tenerife and Poland, two locations he knows extremely well. I've known Mark for many years. He's written almost 90 columns for our sister magazine Kiteworld. He's also a double kiteboarding world champion, winning both those titles in the same year, 2002, a unique feat. He's also a much revered twin tip and kitefoil creator. In this interview, Mark reveals how he was sceptical about wingfoiling in the beginning, but then 2 years ago in Ireland had a Eureka moment when he realised the potential in the surf. Mark has spent pretty much 25 years living on the beach, which was ideal when it comes to developing designs and being a pro rider. But the time came to move when Shinn reached a scale that was making it more difficult to manage the logistics and business side of the company from Tenerife. In order to have the greater control over the manufacturing that they wanted with the company expanding, Mark and his wife Malvina decided to move back to her homeland in Poland. Since the move in 2016, they've opened a factory and warehousing in Poland, but it just means that Mark has quite a bit more driving to do for his water time than he did before. Look out for a separate video coming soon that's more focused on the challenges of manufacturing in today's current climate. But in this video I caught up with Mark via Zoom at his office in Poland the day before he and his team were heading off to Egypt to shoot all their latest kite and wingsurfing products. There we go. Mr. Wright, boss.
Yeah, you can tell my wife didn't buy me that.
She did buy it or she didn't?
No, for sure not.
For sure not, I was going to say, blimey. So yeah, thanks for taking the time. I know you're very busy at the moment.
My pleasure.
Fresh from an event at the weekend. The events are going quite well in Poland, aren't they?
Yeah, it's been, I think there's been a full season of freestyle, Formula Kite race, the new A-class Olympic youth race. And this year we started wing racing and, well, generally wing events in Poland. So it's been fun. 1 year ago on the lakes in the south of Poland, I think I was the only person winging, and now we have a pretty solid group. And on the coast, there's more and more springing up all the time. Well, to be honest, nothing grabbed me from the very start. Like most people, I saw it, and I was one of the first to say that's just strange.
Yeah.
I saw it online. I was like, what is this? But I was like, you know, I believe if you don't try something, you shouldn't pass judgment on it. So I did buy a wing. I did like put something together, and I did go on the water. And my first sessions on it were, it didn't disappoint in that I was sure that this was nothing. You know, the first wings available were all 4 meter, which is strong wind. And for me, that was clear. It's like the last thing I need is another strong wind sport. I have kite wave boards, I have windsurf boards, I have big air twin tips. You know, I have plenty of things to do when it's windy. The problem is always when the conditions aren't great. That's when you need toys. But I had a Eureka moment 2 years ago in Ireland with Neil Genn. And both of us we had no idea really what winging was. We were just messing around with it. And we had a couple of days of good wind and swell, and that was the Eureka moment where I was, okay, now I know what this is. This is a surf sport when you can't surf. And I've looked at it from that perspective. Of course, winging is more than that to many people. It's there's people that enjoy touring on the lakes winging, there's people that enjoy freestyle, there's people that enjoy racing. But for me, personally, the attraction of winging is to be able to go surfing when you can't surf. Kiting started as a flat water sport, whereas winging started on foils that had already been designed for surf foiling, and the wing came on board as an engine. And now the jumping thing and the racing thing has started, and that's great. But I don't think, certainly in jumping, I think freestyle has a way to go yet to find what it really is.
So in waves, what are the sticking points for you in terms of wingsurfing at the minute? Is there anything you're frustrated with that you think could be better or make your performance better? I'm guessing that your answer is probably going to revolve around equipment rather than physical ability.
Well, let's assume that every single rider in the world can get better. So there's always things you can tune in your own performance. And one of the things about winging is you have to open a new book. You have to look in different directions, because you can go places where you can't on a surfboard, either kiting on surfing or just pure surfing. You know, this the whole pump out thing, the fact that you have so much glide and you can go through sections better. I would say in conventional surfing, you normally have like a radar of, let's say, 20, 30 meters around you, because this is your environment and you can't go past it.
Mm-hmm.
But on the foil, you have to open your mind. You know, the right place to be might be 50, 60 meters away, not right next to you. And you know, you can access many more parts of the wave with the foil. So from that perspective, I think we're still experimenting on what we can do and where we can go. I think board sizes went radically small, but I think they'll come back up again, just because of practicality. If you go down between the waves on a 35, 40 liter board, it can be extremely challenging to start again. And also, many spots with great conditions just aren't deep enough to do the standing start on the board. So I do think that board sizes will creep back up to a kind of middle ground again. Suddenly I started on a 125 liter board, I went down to a 35 liter board, and now I'm back to something around 60, 70 liters, just because of usability in the waves. We have the same with wings, we have the same with foils. You know, the first wings were all around 4 square meters. And already you see the trend is for riders taking a bigger wing so they can ride a smaller foil.
And I think you said you were riding already a 750, did you say?
Recently I've been riding a 720.
I mean, that's tiny. That's really small. You know, that's sort of what a lot of people in kiting are. The average is like 800, isn't it, to 1,000 now? And now with winging, it's going smaller.
Yeah, but only in kiting you're relying on the kite power, and winging, if there's swell, you have swell, so you have an added power source. And what I'm finding now is the same with the front wings. It's exactly the same that happened with the boards. We started with big foils, like 2,000 square centimeters, and they've crept down and down. And every time you go smaller, you go, well, actually, I can be smaller again. There's very little difference in takeoff speed between, for instance, a 720 and a 950. Very little difference. If there's wind, there's wind. If there's no wind, there's no wind. You know, neither of them. You can stand on the board in no wind and pump onto the foil. You need a gust or or something to get you started. But once you're started, the only difference I really see, the glide is very similar. The only difference I really see is that the 720 is faster and turns better. However, I reserve the right to change my mind. So I'm telling you what I think today. Next week I might think something else. And I see a position where most riders have 2 front wings, one for light wind and one for stronger wind. But quite what they are, I'm not sure. I would have said 2 months ago, I would have said that's a 1650 for light winds and a 1200 for stronger winds. But like I said, now I'm really enjoying the 720 size. So let's see.
How realistic do you think that size is for not a beginner, someone who's progressing really well, riding quite windy conditions, getting into waves, an average, rider who's progressing pretty well?
I think it will be easily achievable. If you have the ability to generate speed with the wing and you know how to pump, then it'll be fine. And to be honest, if you don't know how to pump but you take a big wing, you'll also fall on it. Mm-hmm. So, but maybe we'll get to the same situation, like I said, with boards, where maybe we'll say, okay, we've gone too small and we need to go back up a bit. But for this moment, I'm really enjoying the 720, and for me the nice thing is it's one foil that I can genuinely kite foil on and wing on.
So in terms of spots, I wanted to talk particularly about waves, about Tenerife and Poland. Tenerife is still a big destination for you for testing. Poland, obviously, as you've explained, you will do a lot of riding in Poland, although you have to drive quite far to get to the good wave spots, I imagine. So can you just tell us about the 2 locations, why you like them so much, and just share a bit of info about the good wave riding opportunities at both?
Okay, let's start with Poland. And when I talk about Poland, this Baltic Sea line is shared between the north of Germany Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and even part of Russia is also sharing this southern Baltic coastline. And in general, most people that saw it would be shocked because this is beautiful beach, white sand beaches with pine trees behind, blue water. You could be forgiven you're in southern France or the Mediterranean when you see the Baltic coast. But it's sand. There's almost no reef or it's just a sand beach. But what you have along this coast is harbors where they've built rock walls out into the sea to allow entrance to the harbor to stop the swell going into the boat harbors. And these create these fantastic conditions. And the place where we've made the most videos is a city called Ustka. And here you have entrance to the water, which is within a few steps is deep enough to foil. And when you're behind the wall, there's no swell and the wind is uninterrupted. So it's very easy to start. And once you start to go a little bit downwind from the wall, you go into the swell. So this is pretty unique conditions. On the other spots on the coast, as soon as the swell starts, the shorebreak starts to fire and makes it extremely difficult to get in the water. Which this is I would say one of the weaknesses of winging as a sport is shorebreak is not your friend. You have a long foil, you have a wing. It's like even when you get through when you have a gap in the shorebreak, you still have to get to deep enough water to jump on, start paddling. The wing's behind you, and even though you're through the shorebreak, the wing isn't. So that's why, and you have probably 5 or 6 spots along the Polish coast with these entrances to the harbour, and just to the downwind side, you have easy access to the water. The other thing is that the harbours cause sandbar buildup on the downwind side, and that's why you get these long waves. Wave is a big word, yes, swells that they peak up and then they back off a bit, but they do it consistently because the sand is getting formed by the harbour walls. And for winging, this is absolutely perfect. You have steep sections which you can take a lot of speed through, and then you're out of the speed section into a flatter section. You can just glide and prepare for the next one. So it's really like 3-dimensional terrain. It's super fun, and it's only really on the very inside that it starts to break, and you need to be careful of getting caught.
The wall sounds like a big help because I mean here particularly we have quite a bit of shore break, and so what I find at the spot here is if I go out at a certain point before high tide, 3 or 4 hours before, it's great, and then you get 2 hours of really good riding, but then you've still got to come in. So coming in is all as dicey as getting out sometimes, isn't it?
I think it's harder because when you're going out, you can see where the shore break is, so you know exactly what you're aiming to get through. And when you come in, most people get off too early, and they don't realize how much longer it will take them to cover that couple of meters that they should have foiled and didn't. So they think they arrived in a gap between the sets, but they didn't because they take too long on that last section. And but it's extremely difficult, and I've got caught in the shore break as much as the next person. So not the one to be offering advice. I think honestly, my best advice to anyone for the shore break is choose your moment and then commit 100%. Don't mess about.
And Tenerife?
Well, Tenerife has the benefit that, of course, it's warm all year and it's windy all year. The main kind of break of Cabezo is extremely not foil friendly because it's just reef everywhere. But that in fact is a great situation because the main break of Cabezo is very populated by windsurfers who are not very keen to have anyone else out there, kiters, wingers, anyone. But for foiling, it's very tough to go there. There's like a 90% chance you hit the reef with the foil. But upwind, you have a very nice area where you have where the swell builds and again doesn't really break too much. So you have plenty of space for the winging where you're not not disturbing the windsurfers. So this is a very nice situation. If you're on the Cabezo beach in El Médano and you look to the north, there's a very large hotel, Arenas del Mar, it's called now. And the closer to this hotel you get, the smaller the swell becomes. So this makes it easy to enter the water and has already become the focal point for winging in El Médano. But one thing that El Médano or Tenerife has is it has amazing conditions for downwinding. The swell is squeezed between Gran Canaria and Tenerife, and you can in fact, you can downwind without the wing. If you're good enough to paddle in yourself or tow in with a boat or a ski, you can already do 15 kilometers downwind on the swell, no problem. And with the wing, of course, it's really easy. So there is, a few years ago, they built a very large container port in the south of Tenerife, which is completely unused right now. And it created an easy entrance to the water. So again, very flat water, and a lot of people are winging there because there's a huge flat water area there. And when you're ready to do your downwinder, you can just ride out to where the channel swell is and downwind back to Menlo. So it's pretty nice for kind of a 10-15 minute drive. You can have a 1 hour downwinder, and this is really, really fun. And I think we'll see more and more on that. I already see people setting up taxi services for the downwinders to take people up there. So
I look forward to getting back. I just have one more question technically about wave riding, and it's something that I noticed in all your video clips and the images that we've run. You run a 3-strap setup on your boards, but whenever you're riding waves, you seem to always have your back foot out of the strap. Is that just your personal preference, or is there a particular technical reason for that?
I do find it useful to move my back foot around a bit on the foil. Sometimes I have it more towards the toe side rail, sometimes more towards the heath side rail. So I do prefer to wave ride with my back foot out the strap. So what I tend to do is I tend to put the back strap a little bit further back than is comfortable for riding, which means if I want to jump, I can just step back into the strap, jump, and then when I've landed, or if I land, take my foot back out and put it in front of the strap again. So I would say that 99% of the time I ride with my back foot out the strap, and I just use it there to jump if I want to. But I do ride 2 front straps because I switch my feet back. In general, I wave ride left foot forward. So that means if it's wind from the left, then I'm wave riding left foot forward. So we would call that toe side in kiting. But when I'm riding out, I switch my feet all the time. So I'm always front to the wind. It's just, for me, it's just more comfortable. And interestingly, I also recently I started wearing a harness a lot more for winging, which is not too fashionable yet, but I suspect it will be. I started with it because we were upwind racing, and in upwind racing without the harness, after 10 minutes you die. So, but in fact it doesn't really. If you're using a waist leash anyway, the harness doesn't molest any more than the waist leash does. And if you are wanting to ride swell, which means you need to go back upwind again, the harness is a great addition. I'm
glad you've said that. I'm glad you've said that, because I've just done a feature on it myself, because having recently started as well. It's the upwinding. I mean, you ride any sort of swell downwind for a few beaches, and it's the angle you can get as well is incredible. Not just the effect on your arms. I find you can really get a really impressive angle upwind as well. I'm not sure that the equipment is spot on yet with the harnesses. I think there'll be there's work to be done, both on the harnesses and the way that the harness is attached to the wing. It seems kind of pointless to be having a harness line and a harness and a leash. So I suspect there's some system to combine everything that's not yet invented. But yeah, I think we'll see many riders in harnesses pretty soon. It just, there's not many places in the world where you consistently have good conditions, and if wearing a harness means you can wing for 2 hours instead of 1 hour, yeah, why wouldn't you wear a harness?